And welcome along to South Today's Sport, the first edition for 2011, and an exciting lineup for you indeed this week with cycling, motor racing, cricket, and of course our soccer tipsters are back on Friday. Whether that's good news or not, that's up to you. All right, the big talking point sports-wise over the summer was the rather precarious position Rugby Southland find themselves in financially. How did it come to pass? What could be done to cement a way forward? Well, Owen Shaw, the chairman of Rugby Southland, sent out a very comprehensive press release last week addressing a lot of those issues, and he's joining me in the studio to go through this in detail. So it's good evening to Owen, and also to Dave Henderson, the head coach of the Southland Stags. Good evening to you both, and
good
happy
evening.
New Year. I hope it is for you, Owen.
It will be.
All right, let's just take through this issue point by point as made in your press release. First of all, the number that jumps out at everyone is the $480,000 loss. Would you like to just sum up for us how that position came about?
Well, we sort of at the end of the year before last, late 2009 and early 2010, we set the budget for the oncoming year. We thought at the time it was a realistic budget. We did put a lot of thought into it, and as we went through the year and got near, sort of halfway through the year, we started to realise that we were going to struggle to meet our budget. And eventually, as transpired, we didn't get the funding that we were hoping to get by the end of the year from a range of places.
Okay, so it's about a 10% override on a $4 million budget, which is more than you would have liked, or unacceptable as you describe here. But you're saying it was an income shortfall rather than misjudging what your expenditure would be? We also spent, I think it's been pretty well publicised, we spent $130,000 over budget on the team. The thing is, we contract all our players at the start of the year, and so and some of those players are on 2-3 year contracts. So when you get in the situation your income's not coming in, you're still committed to what you have to play the contracted players, obviously. But we did add some players to the squad, and that did increase our costs, and we were still hoping, as we were doing that month by month, that we would still have a break-even point by the end of the year. As transpired, perhaps our budgeting was optimistic. Okay, there's a couple of ways you earn money. Obviously the gate. Now the appearance to many is that the gate's doubled, the shield was huge success. How come that didn't solve your issues for you? It's not that simple, is it?
No, well our gate takings are about less than 10% of our revenue. Right. We had some great gates, but there were also some games where we were under budget, what we expected for the games. We were a little bit disappointed with our pre-season games against Wanganui and North Otago. To be fair, we still had great support, but we did expect more. And I think the other game was the Auckland game. There we were defending the shield against Auckland, but we had a very poor crowd because of the snow. So it is less than 10% of our revenue, but it was still kind of down on what we hoped for some of those games.
That was the only aspect of the Auckland game that was poor, because it was a tremendous match.
That's right.
All right, let's talk about that shortfall again in another area then. So the economy going through a bit of recessionary time, was that an impact? Yeah,
it has an impact. I think across New Zealand it's recognised rugby, all unions are struggling to get that income from foundation, trust, sponsorship, all those quarters.
So it wasn't one sector of the community, it was a piece of everything.
And their budget was based on some historical information. But it is a struggle. Okay. And, you know, is it a funding issue or an expenditure issue? You know, it could be a bit of both, it could be one or the other. But we got some stuff wrong, and we want to work real hard in the future to make sure this doesn't happen again, put it that way.
Do you think part of it was perhaps a lack of disclosure on your part earlier, rather than wait to the end of the year before people found out? A little piece of information at a time might have just appeased the situation?
I know we've been criticised in that area, and once again we have to work harder, work our way forward where all our funders are in touch with exactly what's going on. In other words, if we want to spend a bit more, then they have to know. I think that's fair.
The big funders, the ILT and the Community Trust, of course, they would have a finger on the pulse, though, wouldn't they? You'd have had to keep them informed because they're on the board. They've got representatives on the board.
Yeah, correct.
So yeah. So there was certain, we were still backing ourselves to sort of get to a reasonable position by the end of the year. It didn't happen.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about some specific issues. There's, and you mention it here, the reports that Rugby Southland spent $100,000 on alcohol was misleading, you've said here. Now, I've heard two rumours. One, it was a supplier bill, and two, it was a bar bill at a local establishment, because the rumour mill goes wild. What was it? Put that record straight for us, please.
It was the supply bill. It's the alcohol that's consumed at the games.
Okay, right.
Everybody at the game.
Wasn't everyone going down the pub and having a drink?
No.
Was it? Okay,
no.
But that's right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll also put another rumour to bed. Also, I've heard a report indirectly that Rugby Southland paid out of that money for the QTV coverage of club rugby. That is entirely incorrect. But though we work together with them to bring you those games, they are paid by the sponsors, a very good band of sponsors, the Invercargill Licensing Trust, Riverside Rentals, you know the band, and ourselves. So that is not part of the money. So that's another rumour we'll just scotch right there and then. All right, the question about Roger Clark, he's come under a lot of fire for this, and you've described it as particularly unfair. There's absolutely no impropriety here, is there? There's not a question of that.
Correct, exactly. Roger, I think it's well known, Roger came 1998. Mediocrity wasn't part of his vocabulary when he came, and I think through that time, anybody involved with rugby knows what we achieved. We came from, we're lucky if we could win a game, to winning most of our games. So Roger was an inspirational leader. You know, I can't say enough about what he achieved in his 12-year reign.
And so, some financial things that could have done better. Obviously, the result wasn't what you wanted, but
you'd have to say that, Tom. And we've all learned from this experience, and we're determined to do better in the future.
All right, we'll get on to how we're going to turn this around. But what was the NZRU response when this unfolds? Have they been supportive?
Yeah, they've been very supportive. They are in constant communication as to the best way forward. And it's not, this has happened to them before with some other provinces. It's not new to them. Some other provinces don't know what the result's going to be, but we know they're struggling as well. Their revenue has kind of been hit the same way as he has.
The NPC competition, ITM Cup as we know it now, is a bit of a lost leader for rugby, isn't it? It gets people interested in the game, it gets the enthusiasm there, but it comes at a bit of a cost. But it's an essential part of the makeup, as far as I can see.
Yeah, well, what I think about the ITM Cup is it's the beginning of the pathway for the rugby players. But if it wasn't for the ITM Cup, we wouldn't be the greatest rugby nation in the world, would we? Everybody's so competitive, and this creates some of these losses that provinces run at times because they're so determined to be successful. But if we didn't all participate in that determination, would the All Blacks be as great as they are?
Okay, Dave, I'll bring you in now. I'm sorry to leave you on the limb. There's so much else to cover there, but 4 or 5 months ago, you couldn't find a bad word to be said about the rugby setup here. Everything was going swiftly. Retailers were making money. Thousands of people in town. It's turned on a penny. What's your feeling to the reaction to the information that's been shared?
Well, thanks Tom for the opportunity. I guess from my perspective, that's probably why I got involved with Owen in that last week in regards to what's happening with Southland Rugby. You know, there've been a lot of negative publicity out there, and you know, again, as Owen's mentioned, there's some issues have to be sorted out internally and so forth, and you know, they're working as best they can to get that done. But you know, I think there's a lot of unfair criticism of what's going on, and you know, and to me, what's been forgotten about is what Roger Clark's achieved and what the union's achieved over the last 10 years. And you know, to me, we've got some issues, and funding is a big issue, and Owen's explained that. But you know, I think there's a lot of support out there with the community, and I guess from our perspective, we needed to sit down and come to you, and then come to the newspaper and let people know that, you know, there are some issues, but we're trying our best to sort those out with the funders and move forward.
Because in this professional environment that you find yourselves in, there's an expense, isn't it, putting together a good team, and no matter where you are in the country.
Yeah, it is, and you know, one thing that's probably hasn't been mentioned is that, you know, within the union, you know, there's been a salary cap set across New Zealand, and again, that's going to take 2 or 3 years for all unions to get to that level, because there's historic contracts in place, and you know, and those players got those contracts, and we've got to, you know, I guess, service those contracts till they run out. And again, each year, as those, like from last year to this year, the spend on those players will be reduced until we get down to a point of 1.35 million. And again, there's been a lot of talk about the union spending up to 2 million on salaries. Well, that's on a constant trend down in regards to what's been paid to the players.
And I think it's fair to say, Tom, that the funders have got a little bit frustrated how long that is taking.
Right.
They've had some promises from us in the past that it's coming down, and it's not happening quick enough for them, so they're sort of thinking, what's the deal here?
There is something to point at now, though. There's a new competition, isn't there, which is smaller, less weeks, less travel. The costs are going to come down, otherwise what was the point of going there?
Yeah.
So there is something to point at, isn't there?
As far as the ITM Cup?
The cost of it, running it, because there's less teams now and they're split between two groups.
Yep.
So it's not going to be so expensive.
I'm not sure if that's going to be the case.
Okay.
The understanding of the competition from our perspective is that after the World Cup year, it goes into back to what we've had in the past, which is up to 13 games. So, so I don't know if the expense is going to come out of it. We still need to get our heads around how that's going to impact in regards to travel.
All right. All right. Let's move on to the issue of a CEO. When Roger left, you advertised for a job, interviews, etc., and a decision made not to make an appointment at that stage. What was the thinking behind that?
What transpired as we got near the end of last year, in conjunction with our partnership with the ILT and Community Trust of Southland, is that we will appoint a change manager who will sit down at Rugby Southland, an appointment that may go for 3 months. He will come in, look at the whole situation, what's been happening in the past, what is the future.
Will that person be, will it be a rugby person, or is it going to be a business person looking at it as a business model?
I think what we're thinking is somebody that has a strong financial acumen, somebody that's strong in that area. I think that's fair enough. But strong in business. I think we're thinking somebody from outside of Southland.
So they're clear of all the issues and they've got a clear head.
Yeah, no political leaning.
Dave, I'll just come back to the player reaction to perhaps the furore that's gone on. You've talked to them. Are they worried? Are they potentially looking elsewhere because they're concerned?
Well, I guess they're not worried. They're just, I guess there's a sense of disappointment on I guess what's been happening out, the feedback that's been given to them. And you brought up a good point about the booze bill. Some of those people are coming back saying that was a team booze bill, after games and so forth. All those sort of things are pretty disappointing. These players are very passionate about the union and about playing for Southland, and they're just disappointed what's happened so far in regards to, I guess, what's come out in the media. And they're just looking forward to, I guess, getting on the front foot and making sure that the union's in good stead going forward.
So they're not jumping on a plane and...
No, definitely not.
They're committed to playing as per contracts.
Yes, very much so. And they've, quite a few of them up in Dunedin with the Highlanders now, and they've had a lot of phone calls and that just to see what is happening. So.
And once again, I'd like to say, both our partners, ILT Community Trust, they are committed to a team that can still perform like it has in the past. They just want to see some change, or how we're going to go about that in the future. That's what they're looking for, because they don't see the particular model as one that can exist for the future.
Absolutely, but neither of them are in doubt about the value it plays to the community. Have they given you indication to that effect?
No, I think they're both well in touch with that. Although I think perhaps they're happy to hear from the community how strongly they feel in regards to the community rugby in Southland in the Stags.
We compare it to some other, and a few people have said that to me. They said, well, we paid 15 million to the Civic or whatever, which is a fantastic facility, without genuine chance of ever recouping that money, but it's fantastic for the entire unit. It's very professional. This is relatively small money by comparison, but it is constant. Is it just the fact that I suppose we knew what the Civic would cost compared with the unknown factor of how much rugby costs?
Yeah, well, I mean, the word I hear a lot is priceless, and so it's kind of hard to put a value on it. You can't look at it, you can't see it. When hundreds of, we know when the Stags are playing, there's hundreds and hundreds of people worldwide watching them, tuning in, meeting in London, watching. What value does that have?
You know, it's huge.
We all said it was
you
tremendous
go to
last year,
Auckland,
didn't we? We went on raved on about how fantastic it
I
was.
think 800 jerseys were sold this year. Everywhere you go and walking around New Zealand, you see them putting the Southland jersey on. Every time Southland plays in Dunedin, they have Stag days, you know.
Was there a study done at any time during the Shield era about the impact to the economy? Because there's always those sort of studies done, because there's 17,000 people went to the Otago game. They all spent a lot of money, and perhaps a lot more than you actually lost in and around the community. That's what the community are telling me. They spent the money here.
Yeah.
But there's nothing official you can point to, is there?
No, exactly. And perhaps we've got to look at doing some of that work.
Yeah, Tom, just from my perspective, you know, I've been pretty keen to get this out and about, is that again, to your point, you know, people can look at Rugby Southland and, you know, just to clarify another point, the providers have been great for Rugby Southland for the Stags, but people don't realise, even if, you know, the providers are giving, you know, 800,000 or whatever they're giving to Rugby Southland, there is an economic return that's coming back to the community that's probably not happening with a lot of the other teams that they sponsor. You know, so you think about, you know, the hotels, motels, you know, everything that's involved, the bars that are full when Southland games are here and when we're away, and those sort of things. You know, people can, you know, they've criticised for the amount of money goes in there, but you know, if you sat down and there was an economic study in regards to what it brings to the city, I think you get a big surprise on what actually comes back into that money that's spent on us.
And I think that's what is missing, because as far as I can see, there's guesses. We don't know, do we? And we don't know. I mean, obviously, you think with that number of people on board, there's not going to be a loss, is there? Everyone else is prosperous, but it's not directly into your coffers.
No, and perhaps that's work on for the future. Maybe we can have a look at what it means to the province.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's just look at a way forward from here. The Rugby World Cup, is there an impact on our ability to host the clubs, to host those games? Because that's obviously a little bit of a worry.
No, not at this stage. We're full steam ahead with the Rugby World Cup. Scottish officials are here this week, so it's just full steam ahead. It's all go, and looking forward to it.
And this, just again to clarify, it's not an income stream for Rugby Southland, is it?
No, it's almost the opposite. It's put a lot of pressure on our staff at Rugby Southland. You know, there's been a lot of preparation for Rugby World Cup, and so if anything, it's been a cost to the union.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's just, we're running out of time, but we want to step through the process from here. The change manager, when do you think you'll make that appointment?
Early February.
Early February. Yeah. And during this time of change management, are you getting financial support you need to stay operational?
We're getting financial support from our partners at this stage. The first few months of the year is the time of the year is quite good income-wise anyway, with sponsorship and season ticket sales. The Highlanders will be here the first half of the year, so there tends to be quite a good income stream during the first few months of the year.
So it's important actually that season pass holders don't get turned off or get afraid and run, because they'll just compound the problem, wouldn't it?
That's right.
Help, so.
Yeah, that's right, and that's the concern with all this bad publicity, is that, you know, everything that's been invested in the last 10 years could go out the window in a few weeks.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, so the board is committed to getting the reporting issues perhaps corrected?
Absolutely.
And to get the management recommendations in place as soon as possible?
Yeah.
And from Dave, from your point of view, it's business as usual with the team preparing it for a campaign to come?
Yeah, it's full steam ahead. We start tonight actually. We're into our first session of the year, which is with the boys, and there's a lot of academy guys there, a lot of young excited guys, and obviously there's still some Stags that didn't make the next step up with us too. So yeah, no, we're all excited, and she's onwards and upwards from here.
And when, as you mentioned before, you look at the Highlanders squad, you can see the path forward. This is an open door if you do your job, isn't it?
For 15 Southlanders playing Super 15 rugby this year, unheard of previously, so it's fantastic.
Sounds like another good news item to me, doesn't it? Excellent.
Dreams are still possible at Rugby Park, Tom.
Well, let's make them happen. Let's keep very close with you, if you will, and keeping us informed so we can pass it on exactly what's happening. So it's very transparent, and we don't have this again.
Yeah, will do, Tom.
David, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for coming in and explaining all. That is the South Today tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.
supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.